Greetings everybody, and welcome to another video by Actual Politics. In this video we're going to examine what is the Little Red Book, that is, quotations from Chairman Mao Zedong of the Chinese Communist Party. Mao's Little Red Book is the Chinese Communist Party's, or the CCP's, Bible. It contains hundreds of quotations from the writings and the speeches of the communist, totalitarian, and mass murderer dictator Mao Zedong. In order to understand the spirit of the Chinese Communist Party, one must study the contents of this book. The version I used is 587 pages long and contains the Chinese original next to the English translation and is available on Amazon. Mao invites criticism of communism. He says the Communist Party does not fear criticism. Because we are Marxists, the truth is on our side, on page 485. Furthermore, if we have shortcomings, we are not afraid to have them pointed out and criticized, because we serve the people. Anyone, no matter who, may point out our shortcomings. If he is right, we will correct them. So indeed, let's criticize and take a look at Chinese communism and see what kind of massive faults it has and why it is a failed political system. First of all, it must be made clear to all Americans that the Chinese Communist Party is no friend of ours. On the contrary, the CCP clearly declares itself to be the enemy of the United States. Mao, in no unclear terms, rails against what he perceives as the American imperialist threat that must be put down. On page 159, he writes, "People of the world, unite and defeat the U.S. aggressors and all their running dogs. People of the world, be courageous, dare to fight, defy difficulties, and advance wave upon wave. Then the whole world will belong to the people. Monsters of all kinds shall be destroyed." Furthermore, on page 165, he writes, "We are for peace. But so long as U.S. imperialism refuses to give up its arrogant and unreasonable demands and its scheme to extend aggression, the only course for the Chinese people is to remain determined to go on fighting side by side with the Korean people. Not that we are warlike. We are willing to stop the war at once and leave the remaining questions for later settlement. But U.S. imperialism is not willing to do so. All right then, let the fighting go on. However many years U.S. imperialism wants to fight, we are willing to fight, right up to the moment when it is willing to stop, right up to the moment of complete victory for the Chinese and Korean peoples." But is the CCP really peaceful? What is its real attitude towards war? Let's read on. Mao says, "Our revolution is not a dinner party, or writing an essay, or painting a picture, or doing embroidery. It cannot be so refined, so leisurely and gentle, so temperate, kingly, courteous, restrained, and magnanimous. Our revolution is an insurrection, an act of violence, by which one class overthrows another." How does Mao intend for this to happen? What are his views on war? On page 115 he says, "War is a continuation of politics. In this sense, war is politics, and war itself is a political action. Since ancient times, there has never been a war that did not have a political character." Mao continues in support of waging wars on page 117. "Not only do we communists not oppose just wars, we actively participate in them." Furthermore, he states, "According to the Marxist theory of the state, the army is a chief component of state power. Whoever wants to seize and retain state power must have a strong army. Some people ridicule us as advocates of the omnipotence of war. Yes, we are advocates of the omnipotence of revolutionary war. That is good, not bad. It is Marxist. So we see that to wage war, be a warmonger, is a communist trait. Can we avoid wars? Not according to Chairman Mao. On page 119 he says, "Revolutions and revolutionary wars are inevitable in class society. Without them it is impossible to accomplish any leap in social development, and to overthrow the reactionary ruling classes, and therefore impossible for the people to win political power. So wars are absolutely necessary for Mao. For Mao, The revolution is part of the great evolutionary struggle between the working people and the communists and the imperialists of the West. Experience in the class struggle in the area of imperialism teaches us that it is only the power of the gun that the working class and the laboring masses can defeat the armed bourgeoisie and landlords. In this sense, we may say that only with guns can the whole world be transformed. And this is very, very foreboding indeed, if Mao can only solve problems using violence, terror, aggression, war, and guns. Basically, for him, the bottom line is that every communist must grasp the truth. Political power grows out of the barrel of a gun. Communists are the declared enemies of imperialists and capitalists. But what about liberalism? Surely if you're a liberal, you will be on the same side, the political left, as Mao. Why would Mao be against you? But if you are for Mao, will Mao fight for you, a liberal? On page 491, let's see what Mao writes. He says, but liberalism rejects ideological struggle and stands for unprincipled peace, thus giving rise to a decadent Philistine attitude and bringing about political degeneration in certain units and individuals in the party and the revolutionary organizations. On page 503, Mao describes how a communist should view society. He should put the party before the people. He, that is, the communist, should be more concerned about the party and the masses than about the individual. And this he writes in his work, Combat Liberalism. On page 507, he repeats the sentiment. Every party member, every branch of work, every statement, and every action must proceed from the interests of the whole party. It is absolutely impermissible to violate this principle. So you see, for Mao, party always comes first, before the people. And this is why Charles Schumer puts the American people last when he said this about the Senate midterm results in 2022. This election is a victory and a vindication for Democrats, our agenda for the American people. So communists like Mao view liberals as useful idiots who push the country to the left, but not far left enough for the communists. We have to understand what kind of communist Mao was. Mao was of the Stalinist extraction and rejected even Khrushchev, who said that he would bury the United States in a famous speech of his. We'll add criticisms of Stalin and lessen the political purges. On pages 521 to 525, Mao calls Khrushchev a careerist, a conspirator, a despot, and a revisionist. He even wrote a book attacking what he called Khrushchev's phony communism. Of Khrushchev he writes, they, the cadres, must be revolutionaries who wholeheartedly serve the overwhelming majority of the people of China and the world, and must not be like Khrushchev, who serves both the interests of the handful of members of the privileged bourgeois stratum in his own country and those of foreign imperialism and reaction. Pages 521 to 523. Now, after all this has been said, the Chinese Communist Party today has the temerity to claim that American democracy does not work, and that there is widespread, virtually non-existent racism in this country. They say this when at the same time aggressive organ harvesting is going on in China. They even forcefully take people's organs who are deemed socially unacceptable, such as practitioners of the spiritual movement Falun Gong, as well as Christians. They tear down churches in China. This they say when they imprison the Uyghur people in western China, and China is a constant military threat to the nation of Taiwan. The Constitution of the People's Republic of China was established only very lately, in 1982. It is only 41 years old. Now compare this to the longevity of the American Constitution, which is 234 years old. The lifespan of the Constitution of any given country is about 40 years outside of the United States. This makes the American Constitution exceptional by far. The Chinese Communist Party has no right whatsoever to criticize American democracy when communism has failed so miserably. It is time for communism to finally fade away forever. It is an evil, destructive, murderous, lying system. Communists of all nations must be held accountable in a global Nuremberg-like trial. The Chinese Communist Party must step down and let people live freely.